What's up, everybody? This is Grant at Cause Artist. Welcome to another episode of the Disruptors for Good podcast. And today we're going to chat with Ruben Harris, the founder and CEO of Career Karma, and just one of the most inspirational people that I've ever talked to. His path, his journey, what he's doing now touches everything that I want to see happen in the world, from education and technology. He's building an incredible network of the future, essentially, of education and workforce development by retraining, essentially, or training from the ground up individuals in high paying jobs. So Career Karma, essentially, you go there, you look at what you want to learn, whether it's web development, design, data analytics, mobile app development, and they train individuals within a very short period of time, probably 6 to 12 months, to get into very, very high paying tech jobs, anywhere from $70,000 to $100,000 a year. And unlike a lot of these sort of reskilled sort of programs that promise to train you and promise to do all this stuff, with Career Karma, they work with companies that need people in a certain skill set, so you have a job guarantee. So if you finish one of their programs, you will get a guaranteed high paying job. And why this is important right now is obviously a lot of people are either being laid off, or they're working from home, or they're just looking at a time in their life where maybe they want to make a change, and maybe they just didn't know how to go about doing that. And also, money can be a barrier for trying to reskill yourself or getting some type of certificate or doing one of these boot camp classes. But with Career Karma, they work with all kind of different programs where money is no longer a barrier and it's no longer an excuse. Because with income share agreements, it's sort of an innovative approach to how to train yourself in high level industries without sometimes paying any upfront cash at all, upfront money, to train yourself or reskill yourself. So I just love everything about what Ruben has built. His story is incredible. I think education and technology blended together, and the ability to quickly gain skills that the market needs for high paying jobs, whether you're 21, 26, 31, 41, 43, you can go through a Career Karma process and get a really high paying job at a company you want to be at is very much a reality. And I think what he has built, the community he has built, the course structure, these boot camp school relationships that he has built is second to none out there. And it's going to change a lot of people's lives. It already has. I would just really, really recommend listening to the entire episode. It is phenomenal, with a ton of nuggets about how Career Karma works, how these boot camps work, how income shared agreements work. And we share I share a personal story of mine, of a really good friend of mine who went down this path and went to a boot camp and completed it. And now he's in a high paying job at a company he loves. And, he's just incredibly happy and loves everything about it. And it's just like a real world story, an example of how you can change your life in a very quick amount of time if you really put the effort into it and go after it. And it's just a phenomenal platform that Ruben has built. Phenomenal story, phenomenal journey. Please listen to the whole episode. I promise you will not regret it. I will link it below, but please visit the Reskill America campaign that Ruben and Career Karma are doing at the moment. There's so many individuals in America that don't have laptops and don't have the ability and want to change their life and want to get educated and skilled, but they don't have the proper equipment. And Reskill America is an effort that he is getting companies, organizations to donate their excess laptops to the students at Career Karma so they can, take the courses and skill themselves up so they can get a job. And I think it's such an important mission that is. And it's, to me, the internet, technology, even laptops, it's a human right, or it should be an American right. Every citizen should have a laptop if they want to better themselves and they want to do courses and they want to educate themselves and skill themselves to become more employable in the job force. I think we all need to take a role in supporting those individuals who want to make a better world for themselves, but also for their community and America in general. So I'll link to Reskill America below. I'll link to everything Ruben's up to in Career Karma. As always, Grant at causeartist.com if you have any questions or requests. Hope you guys are having a great week, and stay safe and stay healthy. Thanks. Bye. how I like to start is about the journey, and I think we're gonna get into that. But let's talk about what Career Karma is first, because to me it's such an immense and necessary platform. Of course, right now, right? But like it's going to be to me, it's the future of education. It's the future of work. So that's a big statement. But let's talk about what Career Karma is first, and then we'll get into all the details and go from there.
Yeah, so like you said, I'm the CEO of Career Karma, and what we do is we match people to job training programs so they can get high-paying jobs in tech in a year. And we have a mobile app on iPhone and Android. We also have a web app. And what makes our software unique is not only will we match you with one of 450 job training programs across the country, but we'll also give you support through a virtual peer mentorship group called a squad during the program, during the job search, and for the rest of your life. The average salary that people make through our platform is about $70,000 to $100,000, and we can take anybody from low income to high income in a short amount of time.
Is there an age stipulation? Is it right out of high school or within high school even?
That's a good question. Some programs will take you if you're 18. Usually it's 21.
Okay.
But the average salary for people in Career Karma is about 25 to 41 that are coming to us, and we have about 500,000 people a month that come to us. But I like that. I like that question. It's a good question. I want to make it more available. I think that to your point, a lot of high schoolers are going to be taking a gap year, given everything that's going on with college. And so
100%.
Yes, there are some that are 18. If you're 18, holla at me.
And I think the one thing when we talk about like skills training and jobs training, I think historically that has been like not very good, right? I think historically we've had, maybe the public sector do it, and it hasn't really been like a private sector thing. And that's maybe why it's failed our country a little bit. So like, I think talk about like the actual skills training. I mean, these are high end sort of like programs, correct? Like come from people that have worked in, Silicon Valley companies, Fortune 500 companies. I mean, and sometimes, I mean, they're the ones teaching it or people under their wing are teaching. Like, I want to get into like what the actual educational part of this is, because it's not your traditional professor that's just in academia their whole life,
Yeah. I like that you called that out. Yeah, there's definitely schools that are run by the government. There are private schools as well that sometimes are predatory and take advantage of people that are low income.
Yeah.
But then you also have these vocational schools called bootcamps. And what I really like about bootcamps is that they teach you exactly what companies need in a short amount of time. So it's not just like theory. It's not the history of whatever skill set that you want to know. It's exactly what companies are going to need to get hired. They also have flexibility, so you can do them part-time, full-time, self-paced, online or in person. And they've been doing that for a long time as well. But I think that the most important feature for people, at least the people that apply to bootcamps and Career Karma, is that every program that we work with has a job guarantee. Right. So if you or any of your friends, if like all 51 million Americans enrolled in one of the job training programs that we work with in Career Karma that you can see at careerkarma.com/apply or careerkarma.com/schools, the ones at careerkarma.com/apply in the profile that we call Fast Track all have job guarantees. So if all of you all enroll and you drop out in the middle of it, the worst thing that happens is that you learn something. But if you do get a job and the salary range that you're going for, and like I said, the short term about 3 to 12 months, and the average salary is $70,000 to $100,000, then the tuition comes out of your new salary, and that is called an income share agreement. That income, that tuition is usually a little under $10,000 up to $40,000, but always cheaper than college. Yep. Some of the programs we work with will give you college credit, so they'll partner with colleges. And some of them don't, but since they are aligned with companies and what they need, they don't get paid unless you get a job. Yeah. So that is the biggest feature. The other thing to keep in mind is, let's say that you do get a job and you get laid off. Are you paying money when you're laid off? No. Is there interest when you're laid off? No. You're only paying when you're in a job and you can comfortably pay for it. And there are innovations on the income share agreement model like deferred tuition, money back guarantee. And there's even some employers that will actually pay for your whole tuition as well. There are corporate ISAs, that's short for income share agreement. And so, but the point is that most people don't have even $400 of savings in their pocket, and they can't pay to go to school like they can for the government that gives you financial aid. But we know student loans are not very good for people either.
Oh, it's awful.
Something to keep in mind.
Yeah, no, I think when we first talked, I think ISAs were really sort of coming out. Really, I mean, there really wasn't that many sort of people offering them, and schools were not really like taking them, and like it was just unclear on like what it was, right? It was so new. I kind of want to dive a little bit deeper into that, because that is sort of a new way to me where people can, and I don't want to say afford college because to me this is like better than college, right? It's
Mhm,
like you can
mhm,
afford a career. That's how I
mhm,
look at it. We always talk about like, oh, we're politicians like we're creating jobs, right? Or
mhm,
businesses like we're creating jobs. I think we need to move on from creating jobs and create
mhm.
careers.
Exactly.
That's how we move America forward. We need to create careers, not just jobs.
Yeah,
So I think ISI has a potential to do that, right? Because
yeah.
then it becomes affordable. It's not even affordable is not the best word. It's just accessible to
Accessible. Yeah.
people. Yeah,
I
yeah.
love it. I love it. I mean,
So
so
talk
to
a
your
little bit
point,
more ISAs are because I think a lot of people just don't know what it is.
yeah. So I love that you bring up this point. We're gonna get into this later because it's literally like one of the second or third points that are brought up when I did demo day at Y Combinator. I talked about how income share agreements are spreading, not just to boot camps, but also to colleges. They're
Yeah.
spreading everywhere because people need access.
Yep.
And we have two reports that I want everybody to check out. There's one called the State of the Bootcamp Market 2020, and there's another one called the State of the ISA Market, I believe 2019, that you can link to and
Yep.
check it out. And that'll give you like a deep history about what's going on. But just so people understand, there are four triggers to an income share agreement. There is a guaranteed salary, there's a maximum that you would ever pay, there is a duration of time, and there's a percentage of your salary. A lot of times people get stuck on the percentage of their salary, not realizing that that has less of a factor than everything else. The most important thing about that is speed, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
So for example, let's say that I told you I'm going to get you a job of 50,000 and above. And if you get a job, then you agree to pay me at most 30,000.
Okay.
So that max is called a cap for a duration of time, let's say 3 years, and the percentage of your salary that you agree to pay is 10%. Let's say it's 10%. Right?
Yep.
So you get a job making $150,000 straight out, like my brother did. So
Hmm.
10% of 150,000 is 15,000.
Nothing.
After 2 years, that's 30,000. But I told you 3 years. So when are you done? You're done after 2 years because you hit the cap, right?
Mm.
Let's say you get a job for $50,000. 10% of 50,000 is 5,000. After 3 years, you've hit 15,000. So how much did you pay? I told you 30,000. You paid 15,000. So
Hmm.
you're either paying less than the amount or the cap. And then, if, like I said, if you do get a job and you get laid off or you quit because you got to take care of your family member that's sick with corona, are you
Right.
paying money when you laid off? No. Are you paying interest when you're laid off, which is a big killer for a lot of people? No. You're only paying when you're in a job and you constantly pay for it. Now, to give you an example of a higher percentage of your salary, like my brother, like I told you, he did a boot camp called App Academy.
Yep.
He got a job, like I told you, in about 7 months, making 150,000, and then he paid back 26,000 in a year because they charged 17% of his salary, but he was able to get it done faster. You
Hmm.
see,
Hmm.
so that's
Yeah.
something to keep in mind. A lot of people end up paying loans and debt for years, but an income share agreement is not a loan, so that's something to keep in mind.
And the ISAs don't come from banks, right? Are they essentially
That's a
like
good question.
venture funds that
That's a
support
good
it?
question. There are banks that are involved
Okay.
with this type of thing. Some schools decide to hold the risk all themselves. So what
Okay.
happens is, like, sometimes, let's say when you're done with the boot camp and you're paying back the school at the end, the only way that the school can pay their teachers is if you pay your payments. And so what some schools do is they wait for that. But what some schools will do is they'll sell it to a third party, like an investor or a bank, or they'll do half and half, where an investor can give them some money to pay their teachers, and then they'll also make sure that they do what they got to do in order to get you into a job. But essentially, that's how it works. There definitely has to be some type of a mechanism like that, very
Yeah.
similar to like the government, right? The government is providing these things for colleges, and
Right.
there's always going to be banks and governments and nonprofits and investors involved.
We talked a lot about skills, and I think it's important to define what that is. So,
Mhm.
what are I guess I mean, obviously there's a plethora of what boot camps cover, right? But let's give people like the example, like web development, app development, even
Mhm.
is it skills like CSS, JavaScript? Like, let's give an idea of like what and how they matched, right? Through when they
Mhm.
go through the application process, I'm sure they put information in and stuff like that. But is
Yeah.
there maybe like, oh, 70% of people we put in this particular like
Mhm.
skill set, like just learn web development, or is it what they want to learn, you put them with, and that's it, you go forward, or do you recommend stuff?
It's a great question. So the main roles that we focus on are software engineering, design,
Mm-hmm.
and data science.
Love it.
the reason why we focus on and data analysis and cybersecurity as well. So the
Mm-hmm.
reason why we started with those roles is because those are the roles that boot camps have been focused on since 2012, driven model for the longest, that don't just get people jobs that are going to be in demand, but all deep alumni network with people that have graduated, that have 2 or 4 years experience, which will be very important to network.
Mm-hmm.
And also because this is the first educational institution that has had like this type of financing for a long period of time that like a lot of people aren't aware of. So
Right.
with that said, and it also gives people options as well. So like there's a lot of them. So there's over 450 schools. If you go to careercommon.com, all the schools. There are, in my opinion, I actually think sales boot camps and non-technical boot camps are going to be more powerful in the future
Man,
of
that's
work
actually, it's
because
just such a great point.
but the problem is that there's not a lot of them. But I do want to give a shout out to my boy Sean who runs Flock J, my other boy Raheem who runs SV Academy, and then there's another sales boot camp called Pre-Hired. They do really well. And we're starting to work with them on a lot of things because we do want to start sending people to do sales because I personally am not an engineer. My co-founders did boot camps and they're engineers, but
Gotcha.
sales is my background, and I would like more people going to that role. My girlfriend actually did a Flock J, and she ended up being like the #1 salesperson at a company called Squire, which is another YC company.
How do you spell it? Flock? You said Flock J?
Flock J, FLOCKJAY.
Nice. Okay.
Yep, it's a great program. But essentially, yeah, those are the roles that we focus on right now. Something that I think I like that you said is like talk about skills.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people come to Career Karma and they're like, all right, if I get the skills, I got the job, right?
Mm.
I tell people certificates and degrees don't get you jobs, but neither does learning how to code.
Mm.
Right? Being the best version of you that you can be is what gets you the job. I know that sounds super corny, but if like let's say that like all of us have the same skill set,
Great point. Right.
right?
Right.
What's gonna make me choose you
Sure.
over the other person, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's
Mm-hmm.
who you are as a person, right? And a lot of people come to Career Karma for reinvention, not realizing that they have a lot to bring to the table
Great
that they
point.
may not love about themselves,
Great
right?
point.
So like if I can teach you how to love what you have historically not loved about yourself and teach you how to turn your perceived disadvantage into an advantage so you can bring it to the table, I'll show you how to compete against an engineer with 10 years experience, right?
Mm-hmm.
If I'm trying to get into a company like Etsy and I'm competing against a guy that has been coding for 10 years,
Yeah.
but I'm a older woman that
Right.
likes to do crochet.
Mm-hmm.
I've been the best crochet maker in the world now, and the projects that I build in the bootcamp are focused on the do-it-yourself community and the crochet community. When I apply to a company like Etsy, now I have something to bring to the table
Yeah,
because
you
the
have value to
do-it-yourself
bring.
community is
Yep.
huge.
Yep.
Etsy creates more masks for Corona
Yeah.
that are do-it-yourself than like some production facilities,
Yeah.
right?
Great
I could
point.
also go to a Pinterest, right? Because they have a do-it-yourself community. So like, don't just because we are reinventing ourselves doesn't mean you have to forget what you did historically. And the last thing that I'll say about this point that you touched on is like the fourth industrial revolution, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're not staying in just one job forever anymore. You're not going to one school forever anymore. You can be an engineer, designer, and a data scientist in one lifetime. So you don't define yourself by your skill. I'm not an engineer. I am Ruben Harris,
Right.
who has done all these things. Like being a Renaissance man and a woman is cool,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Polymath is cool now, right?
Right.
I'm start ranting about it. Yeah.
No, it's so many great points there, and I kind of want to mention because I've experienced like a real world example. So I'll just tell a quick story real quick. Is that my friend he had a chemistry degree, right?
Mm-hmm.
Went into like food services. It was quality assurance because he had a biochemistry background. He went to like the food service industry to like make sure like the foods and things were made properly, and he had to quality ensure that the stuff that went in your shampoo bottle was like legit. It wasn't gonna like tear your skin off, right? Whatever.
Mm-hmm.
My point is he had a chemistry background, a really good job, but he hated it, right?
Mm-hmm.
But to your point, just like the crochet lady, he had value to bring when he was like, he's like, he was like, Grant, I really want to make a change. He was like, I really think I would love to code, right? He's like, I would love to do, JavaScript development, right? And I was like, it's like, dude, you should just do a boot camp, bro. I was like, you should really look at these. And I was like, if you got the time, do it. He quit his job.
Mm-hmm.
Really good living, right?
Mm-hmm.
32-year-old, quit his
Mm-hmm.
job, chemistry degree, 10 years experience, quit his job, went and drove for Uber. And he said, I'm going to just knock this out. I'm going to do this boot camp. And he did it through Block. Uh,
Mm-hmm. Block is
so,
dope. I like
yeah,
Block.
I loved it.
We work with them.
Yeah, and so he was like, and he did it, man. It took him a little while because he had a baby during the time too. So of course
Mm-hmm.
his
Shout
stress
out to
is
the parents
crazy.
on the call.
And,
Mm-hmm.
and it took him like 8 months, but it'll take you the program was 6 months. It took him 8 months, graduated. It took him 60 days to get a job. And now
Amazing.
he works at a place he loves. He's like, dude, I can be here for the rest of my life. He's like,
Amazing.
every day is like, I love to go to work. What the company's doing is amazing. Like I'm learning every day. And he's
Yep.
like thanking me, right? Because I like put him on to these boot camps. He's like, whatever projects you got, I'll build them for you. You know what I'm saying? So I'm like, great, right? But I'm saying like that's just a real world experience that I'm sure you hear thousands of times.
What's lit about that story though is like he just needed the push, right? He just needed the encouragement from
He,
you, right? He needed to hear it from somebody else that he recognized. Like people trust other people, right? So like one of the big, like I would say, Career Karma secret sauce is our community, right? We have a whole peer network of people helping people. So like if your friend came to Career Karma going to Block, he would be in like the Dads Who Code squad, and they will be encouraging each other the whole way through the process. And like sometimes all you got to do is give somebody the alley-oop for them to slam dunk it, right?
100%.
Sometimes it takes a little bit more, but like having like people underestimate what happens when you believe in somebody, especially somebody that has historically been treated the wrong way or been marginalized.
100%. 100%. And look, and like we said, we'll talk a little bit with Reskill America, because I think that the point you made is that those individuals usually don't have that environment at home that is motivational for something like this, right? Like if they walked in and said something like that, I'm gonna quit my job, I'm gonna go drive for Uber, and I'm gonna just take this boot camp course for 6 months. Like I don't know that you would have support. Like I think in any community right now, you probably would have much
everybody's scared right now.
Yeah, much response for that, right? And so like, and his significant other was not happy about it, right? Like my wife was like, "Oh, that was so stupid. Why did you do that?" And I'm like, "Dude, I'm telling you, if you do this, if you actually stick to this and do it, bro, you will. Getting a job is not gonna be the problem. You're gonna have to choose between jobs that you want is gonna be the problem, right? Because this skill is so warranted out there. Like people need top talent like this that know what they're doing and can solve problems, man. I was like, you have the ability to do it. You just got to do it. And he did it, man. It was motivational to me to watch him do it,
Yeah, and what you said about like your circle matters, right? So like, yes, you want to have a squad that helps you on the journey. That's not negative, but you might have people that you love trying to tell you not to do this. It sounds crazy, like quit my job,
100%.
do this for 6 months, and like I'm gonna do this boot camp thing, right? A lot of times it's like my mom, right, or like somebody like that. When I told my mom I'm leaving Atlanta to visit San Francisco for a month, and I never came back, right? She's gonna be worried about me. She don't want me to do that. Right? It's been like 6 years. And so like I saw this really cool quote on the streets of San Francisco on the way, and I always like reading graffiti. It's a Mike Tyson quote. It said, "Fear is just like fire. It can be helpful if you know how to use it. If not, you'll get burned." Right? So like fear is a greater motivator than the anticipation of gain. Right? And so like we can go into that deeper, but like I just think that like the point that you brought up is like it's important, because sometimes people be like, "Oh man, I have so much negative energy around me, like this like crabs in a bucket mentality," which is true. We do have a lot of crabs in a bucket. Like we see what happened to Nipsey, so R.I.P. Nipsey.
Yeah.
But there are some people that love you that are gonna say things that might feel negative, but it's just love. So,
but it's also why Career Karma is so important, because you don't need that circle around you to be positive, right? It's like, look, if you guys don't believe in me, I have an entire community that believes in me, is gonna help me get this done, bro. And like that's the power in it. I think that'll lead us to like Reskill America, right? Because I think there's especially like right now, like you said, was it 50 million people that have been laid off, right? And a lot of those jobs are unskilled individuals, right? Like and they're looking for something different, right? Like most of those 50 million people, like if they had a better opportunity, they probably wouldn't go back to their jobs,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
Like, so,
Hmm.
like, tell us about how that project even came about and like what it is
Yeah.
about.
The whole George Floyd situation frustrated me, right? I think
Sure.
people aren't just rioting and kicking and burning things down just because of police brutality. People don't have jobs,
Right.
right? People of color are dying more than others in coronavirus. It kind of feels like a setup, right?
Right.
People are pissed off.
Yep.
And so, like, I'm grateful to be in a position where we can help people from underestimated backgrounds take over these digital streets, even if we can't take over the physical streets. And so,
Hmm. Hmm.
um,
Which is
when
much
you think
more
about
power. There's actually much more power than digital
way,
streets.
way more powerful, or like Huey Newton from the Black Panthers said, what the 10th point in the Black Panther Party was actually people's community control of modern technology, which we have not done yet.
Hmm.
And so I want to help people fulfill that, right? Because that's going to bring full employment to our people. That will bring all the other things that we asked for. But we can get into that later.
Sure.
But going back to this, like 51 million Americans. So, like, to your point, 51 million Americans lost jobs over the last 17 or 18 weeks, right, due to coronavirus,
Hmm.
or filed for unemployment.
Hmm.
Now, I want to correct one thing. I wouldn't say they're unskilled. They are
Hmm.
definitely skilled. They definitely have a lot to bring to the table.
Yeah. I
But
meant,
to
you know
your
what
point,
I meant like
their
web
skills
development.
that
Yeah.
they
I just,
have
yeah.
aren't they're not they're not aligned with where the economy is going,
Correct. They're not high
right?
wage skills at
There's
the
no
moment.
going back to normal.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
there's
Right.
no going back to normal,
Yep.
right? People are like, oh, I just can't wait till coronavirus is over. We're gonna go back to normal. It's not happening,
Yeah.
right? Now, if anything, Corona has accelerated the digital economy. If you don't have tech at your core, your business is dead. Period. That's why every single company that's in tech is hitting, like, not every company, but a lot of tech
Close.
companies are hitting all-time highs
All time.
when
Yeah.
you got small businesses like getting crushed right
Yep.
now. And
Yep.
so, to your point, a lot of these jobs are gone permanently. And so,
100%.
what a lot of people don't realize, so, like, this has created a boom in career comma. By the fall, we're going to have over 1 million people a month coming to the
I
platform.
know, man.
And
It's crazy.
most people have a smartphone, but less than 60% of Black and brown people have a laptop.
Hmm.
And, like, to take it another step, let's talk about low-income communities. Like, 46% of adults living in households earning less than $30,000 per year do not own a laptop,
Hmm.
right? Usually when people talk about the digital divide, they're always talking about Wi-Fi, which is absolutely important.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
shout out to the libraries that are helping people get Wi-Fi and a bunch of things like that. But if remote work is a trend and you want to be able to work from home, especially for the moms that are quarantined, because moms are
Good
going
point.
through it right now,
Great point.
right?
Hmm.
We
Hmm.
need to be able to have devices to be able to not just train, but also work from home,
Hmm. Hmm.
right? So what I noticed through the Career Comma platform with my team, Archer team, Melvin, and many other on the team, is that people are using our discussion forums to find laptops in the community. So if I don't have a laptop, but I have a spare room, you can stay in my spare room. I'll let you borrow the laptop, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, wow, that's pretty interesting. And I shared that observation with Frida Kapor-Klein, who's at the Kapor Center for Social Impact in Oakland, which is a nonprofit. And she was like, that's crazy. That's wild. Why don't we do something special for them? Because you're a for-profit organization, so you can't really do much. You need to have a nonprofit entity.
Gotcha.
And
Yep.
since that takes forever to start it,
Right.
why don't we serve as your fiscal sponsor?
Love it.
And we'll be the nonprofit, so there's a clear line. And then what you can do, Ruben, is what you know how to do best, and reach out to all the companies in their IT departments and ask them to donate old laptops that they don't need
Yep.
to give to the Kapor Center. And if they don't have laptops to give and they have money from their corporate social responsibility department, HR department, or their diversity or their employee resource group, they can cut a check to the Kapor Center so it's tax deductible. And by the way, the laptop donations are also tax deductible. And 100% of that will go towards the people in Career Karma that got laid off, that want to enroll in boot camps and need the tools to get a job in tech. So we're calling the campaign Reskill America, the Great Rehiring Initiative. We want to give away 5,000 laptops. In the last few weeks, I've already raised over $170,000 from companies like Square, GitHub, Affirm, Airtable. Twitter just gave us 26 laptops today, Redfin, all these companies that really are rallying together to help people get ready for this fourth industrial revolution. Also just got 2 nonprofit checks for the first time, 2 nonprofit checks. One of them's from the Philanthropic Ventures Foundation and one from Colin Kaepernick's Foundation Know Your Rights Camp, which is super cool because we got a lot of pro athletes that are on Career Karma now too.
That's great.
So that's the campaign.
So I want to touch on a little bit what you said, because to me, this you might disagree with me, and that's okay, bro, because that's how we move the conversation along, right? But
Yeah.
all this money, like you touched on George Floyd and all everything that happened after it, right? You saw like all of a sudden like all these minority owned venture firms pouring
Mhm.
money in, 40 million go here, 30 million go, and I'm like, this is a good thing, yes, but
Mhm.
like we still have millions of people who don't have laptops, right? Like,
Bro, yes.
why can't we give all that money to this initiative, because that's actually going to help the people that come from a George Floyd neighborhood,
Bro,
like this is what I don't understand.
let's talk about this. Let's talk about this. So, like, I'm learning a lot through this nonprofit world, right?
Hmm.
Because, like, first of all, and I actually did a philanthropy podcast earlier today. Shout out to Eric Brown to like actually sound off about how I feel about this. Like, 90% of U.S. foundations don't have a website, which is a problem, right? And they don't accept open invites. You got to have a relationship with them first. So, like,
Mm,
thank God I'm blessed to be in a position to have relationships or to make relationships to get to people. But
mm,
like, how is Joe Schmo or Susie supposed to get in front of a foundation if you don't accept no solicitation? It makes no
right,
sense, right?
right,
So that's number
right.
one. Number two, the grant making process is ridiculous. I'm gonna just
Oh,
call it
dude,
that. It's
it's insane.
terrible.
It's
Like
insane.
it's way too slow, right? The main difference between a startup and any other organization is that is speed, right? So that's something that I've learned.
Hmm.
And if anything, I think nonprofits and governments are blessed to be in a very good position to help people because people are hurting now. And we can't wait for 3 to 6 months to deploy money to them, right? So we got to move faster, and the grant making process sucks, so we got to fix that, right?
Yep.
Number three, number three, I think that even if your time is limited, which I totally understand, there are things that we can learn. If you don't trust yourself or if you don't have time to review all the applications, you can adopt a scout model with your
Mm,
nonprofits. The way
yep.
that I think about a scout model is give money to your grantees and give them the ability to give grants to anybody that they've pleased that are nonprofits to help,
Yep.
because that's going to allow you to spread your seed faster, and then they'll be on your radar and you'll know that they fit your criteria because the person that's a grantee knows what you like. And then if you want to double down on that grant, then double down on it. That would help a lot. And I have a lot of other opinions about it, but like I'll say those are the main ones. Speed, this grant process makes no sense.
It's crazy.
In my opinion, it's actually harder to raise from nonprofit than venture capital, which
A
makes
hundred
also no sense.
percent.
And the other, especially as a person of color, and you know what's the biggest stat that jumped out to me that like really pissed me off? And I'm gonna give a huge shout out to Edgar Villanueva who put me onto this thing. You guys know, Edgar Villanueva? He's the
Mm,
homie. You should check him out.
okay.
I think he talks about like decolonizing philanthropy or whatever.
Interesting.
He gave me this stat. Out of all of annual grant making, only 8.5% of the grants go to people of color. That should make everybody upset,
Yeah. Yeah.
especially when you are supposed to be helping people from the hood,
Right. Right.
right?
Right. Yeah, bro.
You know?
It's we talk about systems and systematic change from, a police level or from a policy level even, right? But from the nonprofit side of things, from distribution of wealth or distribution of philanthropy, right? That need, and just we touched on the venture thing. I know it's less than 1% goes to minorities for venture capital, right? So obviously there's systematic change that can happen, right? But guess what? Like defunding the police, like that's not gonna happen
Nah,
ever,
nah.
right? But like, and then like changing policy, that's gonna take decades, right? But
Exactly.
guess what? Like getting laptops to people, making the nonprofit side of grant making, that's a problem that can be done in a month, bro.
It's
Right?
easy to understand, and like to your point, like it's sustainable. Let me give you an
100%,
example. This is like
100%.
this is like a wishful thinking example. Let's pretend somebody listened to this podcast, which I know you got a huge
Mhm.
audience, and they were like, you know what? These guys are making great points. Let's give them all the laptops, okay? And let's say another person was like, you know what? This income share agreement thing is cool, but how about I just like pay for all the tuition, right?
Mm,
But
mm.
but but what if the people that are getting the laptops that have the scholarships to go for free still want to give back, right? And we can get them jobs making $100,000. So collectively, they will make $500 million.
Mm.
And if they give 10% of their income for a year, now you've created a $50 million fund.
Mm.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, man.
And now you can use that without ever having to talk to venture capital, nonprofit, or nobody. And the fund was created by the people for the people. You see what I'm
Uh,
saying?
I see what you're saying, and I love everything about it. And like, I think the difference is that this stuff can be done, though, right? This is not dependent on
So simple.
policy. It's not dependent on policymakers. It's not dependent on legislation. It's not dependent on the government. It's not dependent on anything. We as people have so much power that we just need to understand how to attribute it and allocate it correctly, right?
Exactly.
And like if you once you have skills, man, like you have all the power, right? You get to choose where you want to work. You get to choose who you want to work for. Giving your skills to a company is a massive power, right? So if we once you have, I'm telling you, man, like and it's so interesting just looking at like the dynamics of like America and like we could always talk about George Floyd just because I think it brings us all it centers everybody to just the situation and like let's just talk about that neighborhood, right? That neighborhood to people might be think of as a really bad area, but guess what the best real estate in America is? Every inner city in the country is the best real estate probably in the world. I mean, if you really could talk about it, if you really think about it. And I'm like, once we get those individuals into skills like career karma, take those paths, get these jobs and 100,000. Guess what, bro? It's
It's
that's gonna
on.
it's on.
It's on. It's
I
on.
mean, it's gonna happen rapidly too, though. That's
Oh,
what
easy.
people don't understand. It's like these communities they sitting on the best real estate in America, right? It's just one we just need to have them understand it. We got to make them believe that that is the case, you know?
Exactly, and understand they have power because a lot of times, like the media pushes against each other. They talk about this self-made person or whatever, which is why, like from day one, we do this whole peer-to-peer. I love that you talk about the real estate in these low-income communities because once we take over these digital streets and we get to a much bigger scale, I haven't talked about this publicly, but I'm gonna just say it, right? I like this shirt that I'm wearing right now. I don't know if you can see it. It says
Hmm.
"Protect Your Dreams" on the back of it. And
Hmm.
everybody that goes through Career Karma historically got one of these shirts that says "Protect Your Dreams."
Beautiful.
And since we're talking about race, we're talking about economic empowerment, and all these things. In the future, I actually want to do a graffiti campaign in the streets on every Martin Luther King Boulevard,
Mm.
since that's in over I think 900 cities.
Yep.
And we're going to call it the Protect Your Dreams campaign to help people take their cities back,
Hmm.
right? Where we'll have leaders in their local communities tagging up the walls in a beautiful way, not in a, like a
Right.
negative way, kind of like the
Right.
Black Lives Matter murals everywhere,
Hmm.
and help people love where they live, not just be like, oh man, it sucks being on Martin Luther King Boulevard. It's just people getting shot up. Like we don't have to do that no more. You know what I'm saying? So anyway,
Cities should be
watch
cities should be hiring graffiti artists to make beautiful pieces of art in
exactly.
their city, bro. The reason why it's looked down upon because you get arrested for it. It's like why? Like just designate areas in the city where graffiti is like allowed and watch what beautiful things will happen. You
Yo, you
know?
about to go to Instagram? At Amsterdam, they have a great graffiti culture, man. Like what Banksy is doing to make statements about COVID-19 and wearing a mask. Like like if you just walk through the streets of San Francisco
Hmm.
and you just look at the graffiti and how it changes, it'll tell you how the people feel. Even if it
100%.
says F techies, right? That's
Sure.
okay. Like now you know how they feel. But if you're sitting there in your echo chamber thinking everything's all good and you're not talking to people that are affected, you're not going to be able to solve problems for them.
Yeah.
And tech is moving towards solving problems that people need. And if you're not talking to the people in those communities, you're not going to do it right.
I want to talk a
You're
little
just going to be a poverty pimp. No more poverty pimp.
I want to talk a little bit about what you said. Individuals that are at home, especially like mothers, right? And kind of
Mm-hmm.
what you're seeing, like the age demographic through Career Karma, right? And kind of what they're dealing with, and the idea of like, yeah, laptops are a problem, but if you have a laptop and no internet, like you're fighting these battles, right? That's a thing you can't solve for, right? If I
Yep.
don't have internet, like I can't just like get that happen, right? If it's just not in my community, right? So like, how can we, for people who get laptops, right? And we talked about libraries before, but that's still difficult maybe to go to, right? And like they close at certain times, right? So what if you have
Mm-hmm.
your job, you know, you gotta work past 6 or something like that? It's like like how when you talk to people, right? Like the digital divide, to me, the internet is a human right. I think everybody
Mhm,
should have it, right? It
mhm,
just is what it is, especially in America. Everybody should have it.
mhm,
How, like, from the companies you talk to, or just like just community leaders that you talk to, like, what is the issue there? Like, why is it because it's just expensive? And then why can't we have these organizations, pay for like internet for like communities, right? Like
mhm,
we can do that, I believe.
mhm. I agree. I mean, I think one thing that you talked about, like mothers at home or just our demographic on home at home, something that people don't talk about enough, is that psychology is key to labor market transitions, which is why community is important.
Mm,
And you have to understand mental health, right?
mhm.
Loneliness is a big issue, especially for the elderly. It
Right.
was there before COVID-19, and there's been a rise
Mm,
in mental health issues now. Unemployment leads to huge cases in suicide
huge,
as
man.
well,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
it is a problem, which is why we think, to your point, Wi-Fi and device access is right because, like for example, you and I have never met in person, but it feels like we've known each other
Yeah,
forever,
for
and
sure.
so you can connect with other individuals and have really deep bonds that are created virtually that a lot of people are still like having theories on Twitter, but like it's possible to do. I've had
Sure. Of
nonstop Zoom calls building relationships with people that I never met before, and it's been amazing.
course. Yeah. Yeah.
But some people aren't extroverted like me. And so
Hmm. Hmm.
going back to your point about like why has this not happened? Why is this not a right? I think historically, when you think about power and utilities, you think about it more as like things that like the government will provide for you,
Hmm.
or
Hmm.
or something that something in a public service will provide for you. Even though there are big companies that provide this type of thing, like I'm not gonna call it the companies because they might get involved with the campaign. So um,
Sure. Sure.
like you would it's either gonna be public sector or private sector, but it's never been like we need this like ASAP as a business imperative.
100%. Is it
And
economic?
since
It's
half
for America, right? Like American. Like that's what
yeah,
we don't understand.
exactly. Since half the world's not connected, by the way,
Yeah, for sure.
half the world's not connected to the internet. I am really excited about two big initiatives. One of them is by Elon Musk. He has something called Starlink,
Hmm.
where he's shooting satellites to the sky
Yep.
to provide global internet. So I think that's a really strong one. There's another one by Google called Project Loon.
Yeah, it's awesome.
They have literally like
Yeah.
balloons
Balloons.
and
Yeah.
providing internet to people in Africa, but eventually
Yep.
everywhere else. So I think that's super cool. I think when you think about providing internet for everybody, it is kind of hard because of like wiring and power and other places and
But
things like that. Even in San Francisco, like
if you
there's
have
no Wi-Fi,
electricity though,
but if you have
right?
hot yeah, if you have electricity, you should be able to do it. So
Yeah.
I'm not. I agree with you. Like, you should be able to do it, but I think people just don't care enough yet. But I think coronavirus is like forcing people to have to care about it because you can't provide all remote work at any company if your employees don't have laptops. And I think that's going to be a
Yeah.
right for everybody going forward in the future.
Yeah. 100%. So is Reskill America, is that a time based thing, right? Or is that just when we hit a certain number, or is it like can it just be like forever type of
Good
thing?
question. There is no timeline.
Okay.
But people are hurting now, like I said. So
Yeah.
there's no end date to it. To your point, it might evolve into us having our own .org or something like that.
Right. Right.
But
Right.
right now, we're just working with the Cable Center for the next year on it.
Okay.
And then we'll see where it goes from there.
We hit on a lot of stuff, man, but I do think it's really important to tell people like your journey, right? And the path that you took to build not only just career karma, but the things you did before that, right? I think is necessary to talk about too. So like let's start when you told your mom, like I'm
Yeah,
moving.
yeah,
Talk about that and let's talk about that journey after that.
yeah. I mean, my mom and father, my mother and father are both I am where I am, right? They taught me to develop things that nobody could take away from me but myself, which is
Mm-hmm.
language and music. So my first language
Mm.
is Spanish, and I've been playing the cello for almost 30 years. My cello's right over here.
Wow.
And I've been doing that since I was 4 years old. I'm 33 now. And what's super cool about understanding that is I've always recognized that if I stop practicing, it's gonna go away. And
Interesting.
I always have to constantly push myself to get better every week. So this whole concept of like lifelong learning has been built into me from the beginning, like setting a stretch goal, getting better every week,
Right.
reflecting on it, listening to yourself, like working in teams because you do orchestra, symphony, chamber music, right? If
Right.
you're the best, you can't just play loud all the time. Sometimes you got to be really understand team dynamics. You got to understand how to be polite, how to interact in different environments, blah blah blah, compete,
Yep.
whatever.
Yep.
So I think that's a factor. I also went to religious school my whole life. So, you
Interesting.
talked about libraries. I actually think that the church is in a very powerful position where the church can actually provide WeWork infrastructure without
Dude,
bleeding billions of
what an
dollars. It's like it's
what an
literally like
amazing idea,
they
bro.
like
Because
you
they're
like
on every
man,
corner. They're on every
the rest of
corner.
the week is not. Bro, Tupac has a great rant about this in Vibe magazine. He did a video and he's just talking about the church,
Hmm.
like why. Well, just look it up. Vibe magazine, Tupac, what he says about the church,
Okay.
and its position to be able to help with workforce development. The reason why I think the church is
Great
powerful,
idea.
and like
Great
something that
idea.
my parents always taught me, I went to education like that, is that the majority of slave rebellions actually came from the church. Did you know that?
Hmm. Hmm.
And what's crazy about like the church is like it's not just about spiritual renewal. There's healthcare, there's education, there's leadership. Like the NAACP had roots in the church. A lot of our historically black colleges were originated from the church. A
Hmm.
lot of people don't know that. So I'll say that's been a key thing that my parents instilled into me. The other thing that's nice about being in church schools is that they're smaller. So
Hmm.
have the ability to interact with the other students and direct mentorship from the senior leaders. And you understand the importance of spirit and
Hmm.
thinking about things that are deeper than education and money, which I think is super important.
Right.
You see, my grandfather, he knocked door to door selling religious books. He was also a math teacher. He also like did a bunch of other things as well. But if you want to run an organization, you have to be able to understand rejection.
Right.
And Career Karma was able to get into an organization called Y Combinator, which is the world's largest tech accelerator. But the first time that we applied, we got rejected.
Hmm.
I've never got anything the first time. This is in my eyebrows to remind myself of that because like you always you always have to keep going because like my friend he's the CEO of Maven. He said Ruben, never burn your bridges because no's turn to yeses. And
Hmm.
all you gotta do is just keep executing, keep shipping. Because like I have stories of somebody that I asked $25,000 for when we were raising, and then they rejected me, and then I hit them up again after we made some progress. They gave us a $300,000 check,
Wow.
right? So
Yeah.
it's like
Yeah.
don't take it personal,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
just keep moving
Yeah.
because they'll see you. Like you and I, we've been talking for years. You saw me when we didn't have nothing,
Yeah.
and so I told you what I was going to do.
Yeah.
And we're still not close to a billion people, but we're definitely over 100,000.
Oh yeah. Oh
And
yeah.
so we're going to continue shipping and getting there. So I would just say like that's been key. And then I know I only have 2 minutes left because
Okay.
I gotta do another call.
Go
But
ahead.
like growing up in Atlanta, Georgia, I'm black, right? And
Hmm.
and I speak Spanish, and so I never knew black people who are a minority. And so
Hmm.
um,
Hmm. Great point.
until I left Atlanta, and so I never felt bad about myself. I
Hmm.
never felt like that was a problem.
Hmm.
My the women in my family are strong. They all work,
I hear you.
right?
Yeah.
And
Same.
so like I'm a product of the matriarchy, right?
Hmm.
Even though my father has also been a key piece of my life. And so that mindset matters. And if you don't have the right mindset, you're not going to be able to get to where you want to go. And most barriers in life are psychological, not technical. And so if you take all these elements that I just kind of like introduced, I would say that's going to help you. So
All
anyway,
right, brother. Well, thanks for taking the time, man. I wish we had another hour, bro. So
I know, bro.
maybe we'll do it again.
Probably one of my favorite
Maybe
podcasts.
we'll just do part two, man. We'll just do part two, three, four,
Let's
five,
do it.
six, seven. So, but appreciate you taking the
Yeah,
time,
bro.
man. It's been, of course, a pleasure, man. And I absolutely love what you were doing, and I can't wait to talk more. We'll talk later on because I want to help
Yeah.
as much as I can, right? So we'll figure
Thank you,
something
man.
out. But get to your next call, bro. And